Jeff, congratulations. Lance in the Buffalo News. Aside from the contract itself, what made this the right fit to return to Buffalo long term?
I think there's a number of things. I think when you go through this process, you kind of try and weigh what's important to you, and then within that list of things that's important, you weigh the pros and cons within an organization. I think for me, the top things on my list were sort of all the positive things about Buffalo, and right at the top, I think I want to win. I want to play on a competitive team, and I think that with the players we have, I think that's a realistic thing to think, and then you sort of go down the list on sort of living situation, how your family's going to be affected, and all those things. I think they lined up positively. Sort of how you're going to fit in with the community, how you fit in the locker room, which for me, fortunately, I had a year to sort of try it out, and I think everything was positive, and that's why we sort of ended up where we did.
Hey Jeff, Ted Goldberg from Spectrum News here in Buffalo. Congratulations.
Thank
you could have tested free agency. You could have gone until July 1st or even past that. Why was it important for you to get this thing locked up, before that?
I think that's just the way it worked out. I think that, again, going through the process, you think about everything, you weigh the pros and cons, and for me, I love it here, and I had a great time. Last year, obviously, disappointed with the result, but when you're sort of looking at the overall picture, I had a great time and a great experience with everything, with my teammates, with the fans, with the community, everyone in the organization, and obviously we just didn't feel the need to get to that point because I like it here, and I didn't feel like it needed to get to that point where I wanted to look elsewhere.
Adam. Hey Jeff, Adam Benini, WGRZ, right here to your left.
Okay.
Nice to see you again. Congratulations. Your interaction with Ralph Krueger and some of your initial discussions and your impressions of him.
Yeah, I just had one sort of introductory phone call with him. He was overseas at the time, and I'm sure he's been a pretty busy guy, sort of with everything that's on his plate. So I'm sure that I'll get to talk to him more as we move along in the summer. But my first impression, I think it's sort of consistent with most of the people that I've heard talk about him, is that he's excited to be here. He's hungry, and obviously his resume speaks for itself. He's incredibly intelligent. He's got a lot of experience in numerous situations that I think are going to benefit him. But for me, the thing that sticks out is sort of his excitement and his just like his genuine excitement to be in Buffalo and to sort of get things rolling. And I think as a player, that's the kind of thing that excites you. When a coach has that, I think sometimes when your leader has that, I think it can be kind of infectious, and it can sort of spread from him on down. So it's nice to see that he has that.
Hey Jeff, Matt Bove with WKBW. What are some of the things, I guess, specifically that make you confident that this team can turn around and that you can be a part of that turnaround?
I think some of the talent. I think that there's some pretty talented players. I think that are pretty young. They're going to get better, and as they grow older, they're going to mature, and they're going to keep taking next steps. I think when you look at the start we had, I know that we sort of ran into a speed bump there and didn't finish off the way we did, but I don't think that sort of takes away from that part of the season where we did go on a bit of a run, and we had a fair bit of success, and I think that those are kinds of things that point towards the right direction, I think. And obviously it's a tough league to win in. I think you can see as the playoffs have gone along. It's a tiny bit here. It's an inch here or there, and it decides the game. But I think when you look at the overall organization, the positions it's in with the talent it has and the players it has, and sort of, for me personally, how I've seen those people work together, I think it's there's a lot of positive signs there.
Joe.
Hey, Jeff, Joe Yurden from The Athletic. I was curious about what the moment was for you that you decided, after all your time in Carolina, that you decided Buffalo was where you wanted to stay, if there was a moment during the season or if it came after the season.
I don't know if there was a single moment. I think for me, obviously I spent a long time in Carolina. I'd gotten used to it, and then that's the only thing I'd really known. I think coming to Buffalo, it was a lot of change, and there's a lot of adjustments, I think, sort of little things you don't really think about, and I think that they kind of add up. But for me, the adjustment here went smoothly. Everything was positive, I think, and I think as you go along, I think first off, when you get traded, it's a bit of a shock, and then you come into camp, you meet your new teammates, and then you go through a season with them, and it's a long season, I think, and you kind of try and take in as much as you can as you go along, I think, and for me, everything was positive. It kind of just sort of, it was kind of sort of in a, I don't know, the best way I can describe it is you taking sort of positive steps, I think, and if you ran into something that maybe wasn't a great experience, or maybe that would be sort of a step backwards. But for me, I never had those. I think it was just sort of positive step after positive step, and I think at the end of the season, you get to go back and reflect and sort of go through all of those steps and sort of your overall experience and your feeling, and everything was positive. So that, I don't know if there was a single moment, but I think when you go back and reflect at the overall picture, it was what I felt like was the best fit for me.
Bill?
Bill Hoppy, Times Herald. Not to ask you the same type of question, but when did you really sit down with your agent, your family, and really start assessing your future and planning it and trying to figure things out?
In Buffalo?
Was it after the season? Was it during the season?
Well, I think there was quite a bit of questions, I think, during the later part of the season. So it kind of sort of pops up in your head, but at the same time, you got a task at hand, and you're focused on playing the season. So I think in reality, sort of when you give it the most thought, or when I gave it the most thought, was after the season, I think, and that's, again, you get a chance to sort of reflect on the year, and then again go through that sort of list of what's important to you, I think, and sort of check off the boxes, and so I think sort of I think the end of the season, there's that opportunity because there's nothing else really on your mind, so that's probably the best time, I think, to do that kind of thing.
Paul?
Hey, Jeff, Paul Hamilton. When you talked with Ralph, Jason had told us, and it only made sense, before you wanted to make any type of a long-term deal, you'd like to know who the coach of the Sabres is going to be. And once you found that out and you said you had the call with him, what are the questions you ask him? I mean, what do you want to know from him as far as being the coach of the Buffalo Sabres?
I don't know if I had any specific questions. I think he sort of introduced himself. For me, I think as soon as it was announced, I got a few texts from people that had relationships with him in the past, whether it was playing for him or knowing someone that played for him or whatever the relationship was, and every text or call I got was extremely positive, I think. So that kind of was a really good sign, I guess. And then when I talked to him, it's just an introductory call. I think you try and sort of get to know him, get to know what his motivation is, and sort of what his goals are and sort of how he goes about doing his business. I think that's not something that I think is answered in one question. I think it's sort of a feeling you get when you talk to someone, and over the course of a conversation, it sort of comes through naturally. And for me, I think listening to him talk, it's apparent. I think his passion, his excitement to be here, and then again, I think his resume with sort of his knowledge, that kind of speaks for itself. That doesn't really need to be explained. I think you can sort of look up what he's done, what he's accomplished, and that answers that question. But I think that the harder part to sort of measure, I think, is his excitement and sort of his passion. I think that sort of comes through when you talk to him.
Adam.
Hey, Jeff, Adam Benini, WGRZ again. Obviously, expectations come with a contract like this, and coming off the year you had, what are your plans and kind of your mindset for meeting those expectations with this franchise moving forward?
Yeah, I don't think I'm different than any athlete, really. I think you expect to keep getting better, I think, and everyone in this sport is a competitive person, I think, and you put pressure on yourself to perform, and you hold yourself to a high standard, I think, and for me, that's not going to change. I think that's just sort of that's a mindset. I don't think it can be changed really by sort of outside influence. I think that it's sort of something that you kind of have it in you, I think, and for me, obviously, I know that there's going to be more expectations. There's going to be talk about it in the media and stuff like that. But for me, I think I just focus on playing. I focus on getting better, starting with the summer. I think you go back and you look at your game, you try and improve as much as you can, and come into camp prepared, and we'll come together as a team in camp and get to work at our goal.
Lance.
Jeff, Lance Lysowski for the Buffalo News again. Jason mentioned to us over the weekend just how committed you are to your off-season program, your determination to get better, as you just stated. How has that process sort of evolved for you over your career?
I think I'm fortunate being in Toronto. There's a lot of hockey players that spend the summer there. So as a result, there's a lot of sort of skill development coaches. There's a lot of power skating coaches and strength coaches that sort of are in the area and pretty expert in their fields. And so I think that you just sort of surround yourself with people that are smart and sort of passionate and hungry about sort of like getting better, and that kind of sort of becomes like a positive cycle that you can sort of you can join in on. And for me, I think that every summer you go back, you try and build on your game, I think, and you can build off last summer. You can sort of look at what worked and what didn't work, and you can tweak things. And yeah, I think just sort of being around people that are passionate about what they do and in sort of getting better, I think is probably the number one thing.
Okay, anyone else? All right, thanks for coming down, everyone.